I met Mary's family when I was 19. I actually met Cody a few years after that. I think I was 22 when I finally thought, wow, Cody's a great guy.
Hello and welcome to Happily Ever Reality. Today we are talking about Becoming Sister Wives, the book that was written by Cody, Mary, Janelle, Christine, and Robin. And we are talking about Chapter 2. And Chapter 2 falls under Part 1. And Part 1 is focused on matrimony. And Chapter 2 is focused on Janelle and Cody. So let's go ahead and get started. So we immediately learn a lot about Janelle. She says that she grew up in the LDS faith, but she wasn't familiar with polygamy. Her father had died when she was 2 years old, and her mother remarried, but her stepfather was someone that wasn't very hands-on. She says that he was distant. And so she's talking about this in the first paragraph of her chapter. And immediately, right away, we see where there's going to be some conflict. It says, this is what Janelle wrote, "I knew when I got married and had children of my own that I would look for a man who would be intimately engaged in every aspect of our children's lives." Yeah, so if you were to just jump ahead to season 18 of Sister Wives, you know right away that this was a huge conflict with Janelle and Cody. Ultimately, this is what led to their divorce. Here's a clip of Janelle talking about it in episode 1 of season 18.
I mean, look, a big part of my relationship with Cody has been the fact that he was such an engaged father. He was such a good dad. And now he doesn't want to be that anymore, so I don't even know who that guy is. Who is that guy?
Cody was no longer active and engaged in the kids' lives, and that was a deal breaker for Janelle. And now we understand why it was so important to her. I mean, it's important to most people, but it was even more important because she knew what it was like to have a father, well, a stepfather that was distant and wasn't there for her the way she would like a father to have been. So we can see right away, I mean, it's the first paragraph, we can see where there's going to be problems in the future for Janelle and Cody. So let's back up a little bit here and focus more on life before Cody. I had to bring that up because it was right there in paragraph 1. But let's focus a little bit more on Janelle. Because she is in the LDS faith and they are not fundamentalist, she doesn't actually know about polygamy until she is older.
So, Janelle, what was your first impression of polygamists before you met Cody and Mary?
To be honest with you, I really didn't even know polygamy was practiced until I was probably 18.
She learns about it because she likes a boy named Adam that she goes to high school with. She really likes him, but she knows that nothing can happen between them because he isn't Mormon. So she goes to her grandma and she talks to her grandma about this boy, and her grandma happens to recognize the family's last name. And her grandma says, "Oh yeah, I know that family. They're polygamist." And that is when Janelle learns about polygamy. And she says it was a novelty to her. Like, she had never met people that were living like this. And she couldn't believe that they acted and looked like normal people, but were living this lifestyle. Now, even though she's learning about this and this is interesting to her, it's important that Adam converts to the LDS faith if they want to be together. So ultimately, that is what happens. Adam converts and they get married. Janelle said that she really liked having this family that she was now a part of that was a part of a subculture. She said it was a novelty to her, and she was amazed that they were outwardly so normal and they weren't hiding it, and they had jobs and dressed normal, and they were a part of mainstream culture, but there they were living as polygamists. She says the wives were often strong and independent women, and they got to have a say in the way their family was going. So there were parts of this that Janelle really liked. The problem was Adam, her husband, he is not interested in being a member of the LDS faith. He is not really interested in his faith that he was a part of before. He's not really spiritual at all. And he's just not someone that she's connecting with the way she thought she was going to. She said they didn't really have that much in common, and they only lived together for 6 months before he moved out. So this was a very, very short marriage. So this is where things start to get a little bit twisted. And if you're a Sister Wives fan, you probably know what I'm about to talk about. Things may have not worked out between Janelle and Adam, but she really likes his family. So she decides to stay in contact with them, and they're friendly with her and invite her to things, including some of their spiritual and religious gatherings. Adam has a sister named Mary who is dating a young man named Cody Brown, and Janelle knows that Mary is just smitten with him. So during one of these informal spiritual gatherings, Janelle is invited, and Mary is there as well, and then Cody Brown arrives. And this is what Janelle says. That evening, when Cody walked into the house to join the party, the strangest feeling washed over me. I felt as if I had forgotten something and suddenly remembered it. It was a feeling of relief and recognition. Now, she says all of this was happening in the middle of her divorce, so she just sort of pushed that feeling aside because it wasn't the right time for any of that. So she met Cody for the first time when Mary and Cody were courting, and when she was still married to Adam. Technically, they were going through their divorce. So ultimately, the wedding of Cody and Mary happened when she was still married to Adam, and she attended the wedding with him. So you can actually see photos where Janelle is at Mary and Cody's wedding. She said it was a little over a year from her wedding that her marriage to Adam was over. She says he lost contact with her and really didn't have much to do with his family, but she did. She says, I entered their family by marriage and I stayed when the marriage was over. So she is now linked to Mary, who is married to Cody. So you're seeing how they become intertwined. I'm going to put a clip in here of Janelle talking about her relationship with Mary's family.
I naturally kind of just gravitated to Mary's family. They were just kind. I really enjoyed hanging out with them. Especially Mary's mom and I would have conversations about her faith. And I just was intrigued by the differences between their faith and my faith.
So just like the chapter with Mary and Cody, which was chapter 1, this chapter has Cody's perspective as well. So at this point, the book switches over to Cody writing about when he met Janelle. So we go from Janelle to Cody, and he has less than 2 pages in this part, but there's just so much to unpack. Okay, so the first paragraph, he talks about how polygamy was sort of in the back of their minds, him and Mary's, even though they were newlyweds. But this is where it feels weird to me. And if you have a copy of the book, it is on page 35. And so Cody is talking about how he's newly married to Mary. And literally it's the 3rd sentence in on the first paragraph of his part. It says, I had seen older men marrying women who had children by their first husbands. I didn't think that I should or could bring other people's children into my life and merge my family with someone else's. At the time, I felt that this was something disruptive to the children and uncomfortable for the ex-husband. Why did he put that there? Why is that in this part of the book? We know in the future he's going to marry Robin, but at this point, they haven't said that they've been looking for other women to enter into the marriage. They haven't brought up women with children. Robin is not yet in the picture at all. I mean, we haven't even got Janelle married to him yet. It's like he just threw in this part about not wanting to marry someone that had children without telling us why he was thinking about it. Did they try to bring someone into the marriage? And if they did, why didn't he talk about it here? Like, was there someone before Janelle who had kids and then he thought, no, I can't do it? But if so, why didn't he tell us? Like, it's just very out of nowhere, in my opinion. I don't know why they even brought that into it. But basically, he says that he knew Janelle as a friend because Mary's family had tried to be there for Janelle, even though she was the one divorcing Adam and essentially wasn't a part of the family. They still cared a lot about her, and they wanted to be sure she was okay, and they wanted to include her in things. So Mary and Cody wouldn't invite Janelle out for pizza or to go to the movies. They were just friendly with her. And he says that Mary and Janelle formed their own friendship outside of him. So According to him, everyone was getting along. And he says that Janelle was really career-minded, but he wasn't. And he didn't know what he was doing with his life. He was just taking odd jobs, part-time jobs. He wasn't really headed in any certain direction. And then Janelle starts working at an employment agency, and she's working in the HR. And so he goes to her to get a job, basically. He needs help finding a job. She's working at this employment agency. She sends him out for some part-time work and then eventually helps him find a full-time job. He also says that him and Mary were living in Janelle's old house. So they were really linked and connected in a lot of ways. So during one of the times that he's in the employment agency, he stops and talks to Janelle about what's going on in her life. And she's just very open with him. And he says the conversation was really good. But she starts venting about the guys that she is dating. And this is what it says in the book. And I think this is so funny. It just sounds like Cody. It says, "Immediately, a thought popped in my head. Janelle should marry a guy like me. I thought I was the perfect solution to Janelle's problems. Back then, I was young and arrogant. I was also naive. I thought I was everything Janelle was looking for." I mean, this is the guy that thinks Janelle is just after him for his body. He's still arrogant, and he's not young anymore. So, I don't know. I thought it was funny. Ultimately, Mary and Cody decide that they are going to move from Utah to Wyoming so they can be close to his family. And when this happens, he decides he wants to see Janelle one more time. So he invites her for lunch, and while they're having lunch, he basically says to her, according to the book, he says, "Maybe you and I should consider you and me." And he does mention that really normally going out to lunch with a woman by himself would be inappropriate because he was married, but because there was such a friendship between all of them that it was okay. But yeah, that is what he says to her. "Maybe you and I should consider you and me." It doesn't surprise me that Cody would think that he was the solution to all of Janelle's relationship problems. Just knowing Cody and how he feels about himself, I'm sure he did think that he was the perfect person for her. And then it switches back over to Janelle, and we find out that when Cody suggested that they think about being a couple, she completely said no. She just completely did not think that was a good idea. She actually said that she was shocked and she laughed it off. So she didn't even really give it a second thought. So some time passes, and Cody and Mary actually move out to Montana, and they contact Janelle when they are going to be visiting his family's ranch in Wyoming. So they're living in Montana, but they're going to go back to Wyoming and visit. And they ask Janelle if she wants to come up and visit as well. And she says yes. And she tells her mom about it. So she calls her mom and says she's going out to Wyoming. And her mom is just not sure this is a good idea. So Janelle's mom's concerns stem from the fact that they are a part of the LDS faith. They do not practice the principle. They do not believe in polygamy. And they also view fundamentalism in a really negative way. So her mom is just concerned that she's going to be spending more and more time with fundamentalists, and that eventually she'll leave the LDS faith and join that faith and sort of be gone from being Mormon in their own community. So she's just worried about that. Now we have to kind of backtrack a little bit and talk about Janelle's mom. Janelle's mom had been married to Janelle's stepfather. Earlier I mentioned he was distant and not a very hands-on father, but now they are divorced and Janelle's mom is single. So we got to throw that in there so this makes sense. So Janelle calls her mom, says she's going to visit Cody and Mary out at a ranch. Her mom is concerned. Her mom knows not to say, "Don't go, Janelle," because Janelle is going to pack her bags right away and leave if her mom says no. But her mom instead says, "Well, I'll come with you." So Janelle and her mom together go to this ranch. Here is a clip of Janelle talking about that trip.
She was very concerned about my decision to marry a man who was a polygamist. So she came to see what it was all about and to try to protect me from making this horrible choice.
I guess her mom traveling there with her makes sense if Janelle is going there and spending time with them and studying the faith and then coming home and saying, I think I'm going to convert and I think I'm going to be a polygamist. Maybe her mom is thinking, I've got to go meet this group of people that's taking my daughter away from her faith that she was raised in and taking her into a polygamous group because, you know, they are in the LDS and they view it as something that's bad and sinful. So I guess I understand her mom wanting to go. It just also feels a little weird because Janelle is 22 and she's an adult and independent. So when you're just reading it in the book, it seems a little bit odd, but when you think about the big picture, it does make a bit more sense. So the plan is for Janelle's mom to meet this family and then essentially sort of protect Janelle from becoming a polygamist. And that meeting definitely did not go as planned because when Janelle's mom met Cody's dad, Janelle says there was instant chemistry. And even though he already had 2 wives, he was okay with having a third. And they began courting. And shortly after that trip, her mom married Cody's dad. So, yeah. So her mom is married to Cody's dad. She was married to Mary's brother. It's just a small world there in Utah, you guys. That's all I can get out of this part of the book. So ultimately, her mom doesn't protect her from them. Her mom joins them. And because it feels like a good time to break from hearing my voice, I'm going to throw in a clip here of Cody talking about Janelle's mom and his dad.
Janelle's mom met my dad and they fell in love and they got married about 3 months before Janelle and I got married.
So that is that part of the story. So Janelle leaves this trip, goes back to Utah, and she says she began looking more into polygamy and trying to learn more about it. And she said it was really intriguing. She also says, and I think this is so funny, all the men whom I'd met in the faith had character. I think she means they were characters because I don't know. I don't know if that's true. And I just know polygamists from TV and from documentaries, but I don't know what kind of character, you know, that's all I'm going to say. So she gets more and more into it. She's thinking this is the path that she wants to go down. She says, you had to learn to be independent. So the women have to be really independent if they're going to be in a polygamous marriage. And that is very appealing to her because we know Janelle is very independent. So she thinks that there is something there for her. So as she's studying it and learning more about it, she is also, you know, learning about Mary and Cody's group and talking to members of the church. And so then she decides that she wants to go pay another visit to them. And again, at this point, Mary and Cody they're living out in Montana. So she goes to visit them, and it's funny because she says that she was seeing someone. So she's dating someone, and she brings him with her to visit Mary and Cody. So while she's sort of learning about polygamy, she's like moved on to dating someone else. But she brings this guy on the visit to see Mary and Cody. And when she's there, she tells Mary and Cody, this is no longer something I'm curious about. I feel like this is a calling. So the book switches over to Cody, and he tells us what he was thinking when Janelle showed up with this guy. He said the guy was nice, but he really believed that Janelle was dating this guy to create distance between what was going on with them. He actually says, I was certain she was doing this to keep herself at a distance from me. So he thinks that she's trying to like move on so she doesn't feel what they have going on. But he is hoping that this relationship that Janelle is in doesn't work out because he has feelings for her. Now, I'm going to read a sentence out of this book where he talks about Mary and Janelle and how things are different. And it's really weird. It's going to sound so weird when I read it out loud. It says, it was a different feeling entirely. One that had more to do with spirituality and intellectual compatibility, romantic love. I don't know why, but I feel like that sentence is really weird. And I paused at all the commas and everything. Like, I read it the way I think it was supposed to be read. Though I get what he's saying. He feels like there's something more spiritual and intellectual there. He felt more of a romantic love for Mary. So we're seeing the differences there. And, Cody has talked about that on the show. He talks about how, he loves each wife differently and each relationship is different. So right off the bat, that is what is happening when he meets Janelle. He's feeling different feelings for her than he felt with Mary. So the book switches over to Janelle, and I just think this is where things really get interesting with her on her own. Okay, so Janelle visits them and she's inspired. She says she's confused though because, this isn't her faith. She's a part of the LDS. She is not just making a decision about being interested in Cody. She's not sure if she wants to convert to a new faith. So she has all these decisions that she needs to make. And she brings up the fact that she has always been interested in Native American culture and living. I hope I'm explaining this right. I'm going to try not to laugh. It's not funny, but it is funny to me, you guys. I don't know why this is funny. Not Native American culture. That's not funny. But what Janelle does, it was a little bit funny to me. She's interested in Native American culture and their way of living. So she decides to take it to a whole other level, and she studies and reads about them, and she decides that she wants to spend more time living closer to nature. And she starts learning about furniture making and handiwork and Native American crafts, and she decides to quit her job, buy a teepee, and go camp outside for as long as she can bear it. I think what I find funny about this and why I'm laughing is it's like I said, it's a whole different level. Like, it's one thing to be interested in or Native American culture. It's a different thing to take your time and vacation out and visit places where you can learn more about Native American cultures. I could see maybe going on a retreat where you maybe go stay in a teepee for a week, but to just quit your job and be like, I'm going to go live in a teepee and see how long I can do it. To me, this is just a reminder that Janelle is one of those people that really will go out there and try to do anything when it comes to being in nature. She even mentions that a part of her wanted to buy a Jeep, drive out to Colorado, and live in the mountains. So it's just a reminder of who Janelle is and her personality. So we have to remember that Janelle's mom is married to Cody's dad and is living out at that ranch in Wyoming, and this is the perfect spot for Janelle to put her teepee and try to live. But at this point, it's already really cold outside. So she does it, but she doesn't even make it one night. Like, it's so cold, she just ends up going in the house. So it doesn't really work out. Now, at this point, she has quit her job in Utah. So she was able to really go and be in Wyoming as much as she wanted to. And Cody's dad sort of takes Janelle under his wing and is determined to help Janelle find a good husband. But his idea is that Janelle should end up with Cody's brother. So that is his plan. He's not trying to pair Janelle up with Cody. Now, in this part of the book, Janelle talks about how important it was that she was with a man who was engaged in his children's lives, which, of course, again, fast forward into the future, we know that is what ends their marriage, but it is actually what brought them together. She was out there at the ranch visiting, and Cody would be there, and she would get to see him around other children in the family. So at the time, Mary and Cody didn't have kids yet. She was just seeing him around other children, and she said he was so involved and, would talk to them and play with them, and this is what she wanted in a partner. She said she didn't want mushy romantic love. She wanted someone that she related to on an intellectual level, someone that she had a great friendship with and had good conversations with, and someone that would make a good dad. And she saw that in Cody. And I'm going to quote the book, and I'm going to try not to laugh again. There's just funny stuff in here, you guys, even though I don't think it was supposed to be funny. This is what she says. Even though Cody was quite young, he was the most emotionally intelligent man I knew. Where did he go? Like, what happened to him? Because that is not Cody Brown in the future. Did his emotional intelligence shrink instead of grow? Like, what happened? What happened? We'll never know. We're never going to know what happened to Cody, but that is what she said about him when she first met him. or when she was meeting him in the earlier years. He was very emotionally intelligent. So it switches over to Cody, and this is where the relationship does like a fast forward. He says that after the TP experiment didn't work out, Janelle was sort of free to visit and come and go to different places. She wasn't working. So she visited them in Montana, and during one of the visits, she asked if she could speak to Cody alone, and she said to Cody when she was alone with him, "I think I'm supposed to be in your family." So she approached Cody about joining their family, and he said him and Mary had always believed in the principle and believed they were going to be polygamist, and it just sort of happened, like it worked out. He said Mary didn't express anything at the time. Now, what I did find interesting was that Cody acknowledged that Mary might have had some misgivings and not been able to express them. It says, "Back then, we were still very young and didn't have the wisdom or the vocabulary to talk about our deepest emotions. So if something was troubling her, I fear she would have been unable to express it in a way that I understood." So he acknowledges that maybe Mary wasn't able to express that she wasn't ready for this or sure about Janelle being in their family. And that Cody sometimes doesn't look back on things and see things very clearly, but I do think he sees now that maybe Mary wasn't ready for another wife to be in the family. But he says that she was okay with it. Like, she was always okay with the idea of polygamy. So I don't know. I just wonder, back when Cody was in his early 20s, think about the Cody we saw when the show started. He's very energetic. He's very enthusiastic about things, very optimistic. Was he more like that when he was younger? If he was like that and even more so, maybe Mary didn't know how to look at him and be like, "No, I don't want this." Because Cody used to be a really happy person and seemed to look on the bright side of everything. He was probably reassuring her and talking to her about this in a way that made it seem like it was definitely going to work out. At least that is my perspective. Again, you guys can let me know in the comments what you think. So things just move really, really quickly after that. Cody says that him and Mary moved back to Wyoming. They got a house that was big enough for Janelle. There was a very, very short courtship, and then they were married like in no time. So it all happened very, very quickly. He says it happened even more quickly than it normally does with a second and a third wife. So it was very short. And Janelle says, because then it goes from Cody to Janelle, that it sort of happened so quickly that they didn't have a lot of alone time together. And then suddenly they were married. And it was difficult for her to feel like they were a married couple because she didn't feel any closer to him than she had just a couple weeks before. In the book, she actually says, "I know that Cody and I weren't in love then, but there wasn't a moment that I didn't believe I'd made the right decision, not just about Cody, but about my new faith." And we've seen that with Cody and Janelle in the future when you watch the show. It's sort of like there's a great friendship there. They seem to get along very well, but it doesn't feel romantic or like they were in love. It felt like they loved each other and made a good partnership, but it wasn't in love. And she says it right in the book that just wasn't the feeling they had when they got married either. So Janelle not only is marrying Cody, she has to convert to fundamentalism. And she said that some of her family had problems with that because they viewed it as sinning, but she still did it. I'm going to put a clip in here of Janelle talking about her wedding and the reception and how her family felt about her being a plural wife.
My friends and family were very shocked. So I did not have enough people probably to even invite to a reception that would have come. So I didn't really have one.
I think that's just a reminder that when she married Cody, it wasn't just a decision to marry Cody. This was a huge spiritual change for her as well. So Janelle marries Cody, she's converted to a new faith, and then a very infamous topic is brought up. They write about the honeymoon. She says that during the honeymoon, they just drove around and would find a place to stop, and that was where they would stay. So it was the classic Cody Brown honeymoon. And then after this, it's time to begin life with Mary and Cody. So she moves into the house with Mary and Cody, and she says that she is living in the guest room, and that is what it feels like. It felt like she was the guest. And she says that Mary and Cody were still very much in love, and they had no idea how to incorporate me into their lives. So they didn't know how to fit her in, and she didn't know where she would fit in. She said when we watched movies, they would sit on the couch and hold hands under a blanket, and I would just sit on my own chair. She didn't feel like she fit in there, and there were a lot of arguments over really small things. She says they would fight about the way to fold clothes, the way to clean the kitchen. Janelle says she was challenged and confronted on all fronts. I lost my sense of self. So that is it for Janelle and Cody in the matrimony part of the book. I will tell you there's one part of this I left out that I wanted to bring up. I thought it was sort of funny. I'm going to read it directly as it is written in Cody's section. So this is Cody talking about Janelle. She was still in her cowboys and Indians phase. That night, she was dressed like a cowgirl in jeans and a khaki corduroy shirt, and her hair pulled into a high ponytail. So that is how she looked the night she went to Cody and said she wanted to be in their family. According to Cody, she was dressed like a cowgirl. So I don't know. There's nothing about this that really surprised me, and really nothing about their relationship I feel like changed. I think Cody and Janelle had a great friendship. It always felt like that on the show, so it doesn't surprise me to hear her say that. If there was anything that surprised you guys about this chapter, let me know down in the comments. The next chapter will be Christine and Cody, so we're going to learn more about when they first got married. But that is it for today. I'm going to leave you guys with this last clip of Janelle talking about how she knew Mary and Cody before she actually got married to Cody.
For the time that I knew Mary and Cody before I considered even joining the faith, they were just kind of like a novelty, like my dinner party conversation, like, oh, I have these friends that are polygamists. Or